What if everything you've been taught about manifestation is missing one important piece? What if your dream is not something you need to force into existence? What if your desire is not something distant, separate from you, or hidden somewhere in the future? And what if the reason you've been searching so hard is because you've forgotten something that already belongs to you? Most people spend their lives trying to make things happen. They chase opportunities, chase signs, chase results, and chase the feeling that one day they will finally arrive at the life they want. They believe fulfillment is waiting somewhere ahead of them. They believe happiness comes after the goal is achieved. They believe certainty comes after the evidence appears. But what if that is backwards? What if the life you desire already exists as a possibility waiting for your acceptance? What if the feeling of fulfillment is not something you earn in the future, but something you remember in the present? Today, I invite you to consider a different perspective. Instead of trying to manifest your desire, what if you simply remembered it? What if the version of you who already has everything you seek is not far away, but already alive within your imagination? What if your task is not to create a new reality, but to become familiar with the one you have chosen? For the next few moments, set aside the need to force, struggle, or chase. Release the habit of waiting. Let go of the belief that your dream is somewhere outside of you, and open yourself to a simple possibility. You are not manifesting it. You are remembering it. Let's begin. One of the most exhausting habits people develop is the belief that they must force reality into existence through constant effort, worry, and struggle. They imagine that their dream is something completely absent, something that has not yet been created, and therefore something they must somehow manufacture from nothing. This perspective keeps them trapped in a state of striving. They spend their days trying to make things happen, searching for signs, checking for results, and wondering whether they are doing enough. The more they chase, the more distant fulfillment can feel. Yet there is another way to see the process. Instead of trying to create what already exists as a possibility, you begin aligning yourself with it mentally and emotionally. Think about a radio receiving a signal. The music is not created by the radio itself. The signal already exists, and the radio's job is to tune into the correct frequency. In the same way, the life you desire can be approached as a reality you are choosing to tune into rather than a reality you are desperately trying to manufacture. This shift changes the entire emotional experience. Striving creates tension. Alignment creates receptivity. Striving is rooted in the feeling that fulfillment is missing. Alignment is rooted in the feeling that fulfillment is available and waiting for acceptance. Most people are conditioned to think that their current circumstances are the only reality that matters. They look at what is visible and conclude that anything different does not yet exist. If the money is not in the bank account, they assume abundance is absent. If the opportunity has not appeared, they assume success is unavailable. If the relationship has not arrived, they assume love is distant. Yet human imagination constantly reveals possibilities beyond present appearances. The fact that you can clearly conceive of a different experience suggests that your mind is already capable of accessing a reality beyond your current conditions. The question is not whether the possibility exists. The question is whether you are willing to identify with it. This does not mean denying the world around you. It means refusing to treat current circumstances as the ultimate definition of what is possible. Your outer world often reflects previous assumptions, habits of thought, and emotional patterns. If you want a different future, continually fighting the current reflection is less effective than changing the inner pattern that produced it. When you stop trying to force results and begin changing the state from which you think, feel, and act. You address the cause rather than only reacting to the effect. Imagine standing before a mirror. If you dislike the reflection, you could spend all day arguing with the mirror, but the reflection will not change until the person standing in front of it changes. In the same way, endlessly fighting circumstances while maintaining the same inner assumptions keeps the reflection largely intact. The more powerful move is to change your identification. Begin seeing yourself as the version of you who already belongs to the reality you desire. Think from that identity. Feel from that identity. Make decisions from that identity. As the inner state changes, the outer reflection begins to reorganize around it. Many people misunderstand this idea and think it means becoming passive. It does not. You still take action. You still learn, grow, communicate, and make decisions. The difference is that your actions are no longer driven by desperation. They come from confidence rather than fear. A person who believes abundance is possible acts differently from someone who believes abundance is unavailable. A person who sees themselves as capable notices opportunities that fear might have caused them to ignore. The change begins in identity and then expresses itself through behavior. One of the clearest signs that you are moving from striving into alignment is a growing sense of ease. You stop obsessing over every detail. You stop needing constant reassurance. You stop measuring your worth by immediate results. Instead, you develop a quiet confidence that the reality you have chosen is already available to you in principle, and your role is to remain aligned with it rather than force it into existence. There will still be moments when old habits return. You may catch yourself worrying, checking for evidence, or feeling that you must push harder. When this happens, gently remind yourself of the new perspective. I am not trying to create what already exists as a possibility. I am learning to recognize it, accept it, and live from it. Return to the feeling of fulfillment rather than the feeling of chasing. The secret is not in endlessly manufacturing outcomes. The secret is in changing the state from which you live. When you stop fighting reality and start aligning with the reality you desire, something profound begins to happen. Your thoughts become different. Your expectations become different. Your emotional tone becomes different. And over time, the outer world begins reflecting the inner reality you have accepted. You are not forcing the signal into existence. You are tuning yourself to it. That is why the first step is to stop trying to create what already exists and start living as though you already belong to it. One of the most fascinating experiences on the journey of personal transformation is the moment when a desired reality begins to feel familiar before it becomes visible. It is as though you are remembering something rather than creating it. You cannot always explain why, but there is a growing sense of certainty, a quiet confidence, and an inner knowing that feels deeper than hope. This is why the feeling of fulfillment is so powerful. It is not merely an emotion, it is a state of consciousness that allows you to connect with a reality beyond your present circumstances. In many ways, it feels like the memory of your future. Most people spend their lives waiting for external events to produce inner emotions. They believe that once the goal is achieved, they will finally feel grateful. Once success arrives, they will finally feel confident. Once the relationship appears, they will finally feel loved. Once abundance shows up, they will finally feel secure. This way of thinking places fulfillment entirely in the hands of future circumstances. As a result, people continue postponing the very feelings they desire most. But consider something for a moment. If your dream had already come true, how would you feel right now? You would probably feel relieved. You would feel calm. You would feel grateful. You would feel a sense of certainty because the waiting would be over. The anxiety about whether it would happen would disappear. The struggle of constantly searching for evidence would end. There would be a natural ease, because what you wanted would already be part of your experience. The remarkable thing is that these feelings are available before the physical evidence appears. You do not have to wait for the outer world to grant you permission to experience them. You can begin cultivating them now. When you do, something interesting happens. The emotional state that once seemed dependent upon future circumstances begins becoming part of your present reality. Think about a memory from your past that brought you great joy. The moment you remember it, you can often feel the emotions associated with it again. Even though the event is not physically happening in front of you, the feeling returns because your mind reconnects with the experience. In a similar way, when you enter the feeling of fulfillment, it can feel as though you are remembering a future event that has already occurred on a deeper level of awareness. The feeling becomes more real than the absence of visible evidence. Many people dismiss feelings as unimportant, focusing entirely on facts and circumstances. Yet emotions influence perception in powerful ways. They affect how you interpret events, how you respond to opportunities, and what you expect from life. A person who consistently feels confident sees the world differently than someone who constantly feels defeated. A person who feels abundant notices possibilities that someone focused on scarcity may overlook. Your emotional state shapes your experience more than most people realize. This is why cultivating the feeling of fulfillment matters so much. It changes your relationship with your desire. Instead of viewing it as something far away, you begin experiencing it as something close, familiar, and natural. The emotional distance between you and your goal begins shrinking. What once felt impossible starts feeling attainable. What once felt distant starts feeling present. Of course, this does not happen instantly. At first, the feeling may come and go. You may experience moments of certainty followed by moments of doubt. This is normal. The important thing is to keep returning to fulfillment. Return to gratitude. Return to relief. Return to the feeling that everything has already worked out. Each time you do, you strengthen the connection to that state. Imagine meeting someone who has already achieved what you desire. Notice how they carry themselves. They do not walk around desperately trying to convince themselves of their success. They naturally embody it because it has become part of their identity. Their confidence feels effortless because fulfillment has become familiar. This is the same familiarity you are developing within yourself. The more often you dwell in the feeling of fulfillment, the more natural it becomes. Eventually, it begins replacing old habits of worry and uncertainty. You stop constantly wondering when things will happen, because your focus shifts toward the experience of already having them. Your energy becomes calmer. Your expectations become more positive. Your inner world begins reflecting the reality you wish to experience. So stop waiting for future circumstances to create the feelings you desire. Begin cultivating those feelings now. Allow yourself to experience gratitude before the evidence appears. Allow yourself to experience confidence before the breakthrough arrives. Allow yourself to experience relief before the problem is solved. Because the feeling of fulfillment is more than a pleasant emotion. It is a bridge between where you are and where you wish to be. It is the sense that your desired reality is already known on a deeper level. It is the memory of your future calling you forward. And the more familiar that feeling becomes, the more naturally your life begins moving in harmony with it. Everything that eventually becomes visible in your life begins in an invisible place, your inner world. Before an achievement is celebrated, before an opportunity appears, before a dream becomes reality, there is first a pattern of thought, belief, imagination, and expectation within. Most people spend their lives trying to change external